When you think of cinematic legends, certain names immediately pop into your head. Icons like Jackie Chan, Bruce Lee, or Meryl Streep. But there's one name that transcends cultures, languages, and genres all at once. Michelle Yeoh. She's not just an actress. She's not just a martial artist. She's a phenomenon, a woman who went from a ballet dancer in Malaysia to an Oscar-winning international superstar in Hollywood. If you've ever wondered what it takes to defy gravity, break bones, and break barriers in the toughest industry on Earth, Michelle Yeoh's story is the blueprint. So buckle up, because in this countdown, we're rediving into 10 jaw-dropping facts about Michelle Yeoh that prove why she's one of the most fascinating figures alive today. Let's get into it. 10. From ballerina dreams to broken vertebrae. Most people don't know this, but Michelle Yeoh never set out to become a kung fu star. She wasn't dreaming of high kicks and sword fights when she was young. Her first passion was ballet. Born in Ipoh, Malaysia, Yeoh grew up in a comfortable middle-class family. Her parents valued education and the arts, and when Michelle was a teenager, she was sent to England to study at the prestigious Royal Academy of Dance in London. She wanted to become a professional ballerina, inspired by the elegance and discipline of performers like Margot Fonteyn. Imagine it. Michelle Yeoh, not on a movie set with Jackie Chan, but instead on a grand stage at Covent Garden, gracefully twirling in pointe shoes. That was the plan. But fate had other ideas. While training intensively, Michelle suffered a serious spinal injury, a back injury so severe that her dreams of becoming a prima ballerina shattered in an instant. She was forced to give up the world of professional dance entirely. For most people, that would have been the end of the story, a career over before it even began. But Michelle's resilience is what makes this fact so powerful. Instead of letting it destroy her, she pivoted. She turned that setback into an opportunity to reinvent herself. She shifted her focus to choreography and contemporary dance, then eventually to acting. The irony here is striking. The very injury that stopped her from dancing ended up opening the door to a career in martial arts cinema. And even though she wasn't originally trained in kung fu, her ballet background gave her an edge. Ballet demands perfect posture, balance, and body awareness. Those same traits translated beautifully to action choreography. When you watch Michelle Yeoh flipping through the air or striking precise poses in movies, you're not just seeing martial arts. You're seeing the precision of a dancer. To put it into an American example, think of an NFL player who blows out his knee before he even makes it to the draft. Most would quit. But imagine if instead, he switched sports entirely and became an Olympic swimmer, and not only succeeded but dominated the world stage. That's the level of reinvention we're talking about with Michelle Yeoh. Her broken ballerina dreams didn't bury her. They launched her. And here's the kicker. That back injury still haunts her to this day. She's admitted in interviews that certain moves cause pain and stiffness, but she powers through it. Every gravity-defying stunt you've seen her pull off comes with the weight of that old injury, which makes it all the more impressive. Number 9. She did her own death-defying stunts. If you've ever watched a Michelle Yeoh film and thought, wow, that stunt looked dangerous, but obviously they used a stunt double, think again. Michelle Yeoh became legendary in Hong Kong cinema during the 1980s and 1990s precisely because she insisted on doing her own stunts, sometimes against the wishes of directors, producers, and insurance companies. She earned the nickname Action Queen because there was practically nothing she wouldn't try. Take the movie Police Story 3, Super Cop, 1992, where she starred alongside Jackie Chan. In one of the most heart-stopping scenes, Yeoh rides a motorcycle off a ramp, launches herself onto the roof of a moving train, and hangs on for dear life as it barrels down the track. That wasn't CGI. That wasn't green screen. That was Michelle Yeoh actually risking her life for the perfect shot. Even Jackie Chan himself, who's famous for doing insane stunts, was reportedly nervous about Yeoh's safety. But she nailed it. And that's just one example. In Yes, Madam, 1985, she fought with ruthless precision, smashing through glass and flipping over tables, setting a new bar for female action stars. In Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, 2000, she wielded a sword with balletic grace, combining raw strength with elegance in a way that mesmerized audiences worldwide. That movie didn't just showcase martial arts, it elevated it into poetry, and Michelle's stunt work was at the heart of it. Now, here's where the American parallel comes in. Imagine Tom Cruise hanging off the side of a plane in Mission Impossible. Rogue Nation. Everyone talks about how crazy it was for him to do that himself. Well, Michelle Yeoh was doing that level of daredevil commitment decades earlier, but without the same safety nets Hollywood provided. In Hong Kong cinema of the 80s and 90s, budgets were lower, safety standards looser, and stunt work incredibly dangerous. Injuries were common, sometimes life-threatening. Michelle wasn't just breaking barriers as a woman in action films. She was risking her life in an industry notorious for brutal working conditions. And the audience loved her for it. Because when you watched a Michelle Yeoh movie, you knew you weren't seeing camera tricks. You were seeing authenticity. She once said in an interview that she wanted young girls to look at the screen and know, "That's really me doing it. If I can do it, you can too. That's not just stunt work, that's empowerment." But make no mistake, it wasn't easy. Yeoh racked up injuries throughout her career, from twisted ankles to bruised ribs, and yes, more back problems. At one point, she even considered quitting action films because the toll was so intense. But her love for the craft pulled her back in, time and time again. To Americans who grew up watching Wonder Woman or Black Widow, Michelle Yeoh was already doing that kind of heroic, bone-crunching action before it was mainstream. She paved the way for women to be more than just sidekicks or love interests in action cinema. She proved that a woman could carry a blockbuster action film on her shoulders and land on a moving train while doing it. From shattered ballerina dreams to becoming the queen of death-defying stunts, Michelle Yeoh's journey already sounds like something out of a movie script. But trust me, this is only the beginning. We've barely scratched the surface of what makes her life and career so extraordinary. Number 8. She broke into Hollywood without even speaking English. Fluently. Here. That was something that shocks almost everyone when they first learn it. When Michelle Yeoh started her career in Hong Kong cinema, she didn't even speak Cantonese fluently, and when she made the leap into Hollywood, her English wasn't anywhere near perfect either. Think about that for a second. Breaking into Hollywood is already the Mount Everest of acting challenges. Even native English speakers struggled to get noticed. For Michelle, English was her second language. Cantonese was a language she had to learn on the job, and Mandarin came later. Yet she still managed to conquer every single one of those markets. Her first big Hollywood splash came with the James Bond film Tomorrow Never Dies, 1997, where she starred opposite Pierce Brosnan as Wai Lin, a Chinese spy who was every bit Bond's equal. And let's pause here, because this was revolutionary. Traditionally, Bond girls were eye candy, glamorous, stylish, but ultimately side characters orbiting around 007. Wai Lin wasn't like that at all. She was independent, intelligent, and could fight better than most men in the franchise. She wasn't waiting to be rescued. She was the one doing the rescuing. And audiences loved it. Critics called her one of the best Bond girls ever, though honestly, she wasn't a Bond girl. She was a Bond equal. But imagine stepping into that production. Hollywood budget, global spotlight, every magazine watching. And here's Michelle, still refining her English, performing in a language that wasn't natural for her. That takes guts. That essay like an American actor suddenly being cast in a billion-dollar Chinese blockbuster without really knowing Mandarin and still managing to pull it off. The margin for error was razor thin, but Michelle didn't just survive, she thrived. Part of what helped her stand out was that she didn't try to fake who she was. She brought her authentic self to the screen. Hollywood at the time was notorious for stereotyping Asian actors into cliches: the wise old monk, the submissive girlfriend, the comic relief sidekick. Michelle Yeoh refused to play into those traps. She demanded roles that gave her agency, respect, and dignity. She turned down scripts that reduced her to stereotypes, even if it meant fewer opportunities. That's a level of conviction most young actors, desperate for work, can't afford to have. But Michelle did, and the gamble paid off. After Tomorrow Never Dies, Michelle became one of the few Asian actresses who could headline Hollywood films while also maintaining superstar status in Asia. That cross-market dominance is rare, and it gave her a level of global influence few actors can match. What's even more inspiring is how this resonates with immigrants and second-generation Americans today. Picture a kid who just moved from China to California, sitting in ESL classes, struggling to make friends, wondering if they'll ever fit in. Then they see Michelle Yeoh on the big screen, holding her own with James Bond, speaking accented English but owning the role. That's powerful. It tells you don't have to erase your identity to succeed. You can bring your accent, your culture, your uniqueness, and still shine. Michelle Yeoh didn't just break into Hollywood. She cracked it open wide enough for others to follow. She became a living answer to the question, can someone like me make it there? And the answer was a resounding yes. Number 7. She redefined what it means to be an action hero. When you think of action heroes, the Hollywood archetype usually comes to mind. Big muscles, explosive weapons, and one-liners delivered with a smirk. Think Arnold Schwarzenegger in Terminator. Think Sylvester Stallone in Rambo. Later, you get someone like Jason Statham or The Rock. These are larger-than-life characters built on brute strength and invincibility. But Michelle Yeoh flipped that script completely. She redefined what it meant to be an action hero, especially as a woman. In Hong Kong action films of the 1980s, the standard formula was clear. Men fought, women looked glamorous. Michelle shattered that. She fought like the men, sometimes harder, and she didn't lose her elegance while doing it. She showed that action didn't have to mean sacrificing grace. Her background in dance gave her a fluidity that turned fight scenes into ballets of violence. Watching her in films like Magnificent Warriors, 1987, or Wing Chun, 1994, you can see it. Every punch, every kick, every sword swing is precise, like choreography, but it's also raw and brutal. She could take down a dozen men without looking ridiculous because the physicality was real. In Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, directed by Ang Lee, Michelle Yeoh brought this philosophy to a global audience. Her character, Yushu Lin, wasn't just another fighter. She was layered, carrying heartbreak, duty, and quiet strength, all while wielding a sword with terrifying skill. It was a far cry from the caricatures of action women in earlier decades. And the film's success, winning 4 Academy Awards and earning over $200 million worldwide, proved that audiences were hungry for this new kind of hero. But here's what makes this fact truly groundbreaking. She showed Hollywood that you don't need a man to sell an action film. Before Michelle, the idea of a female-led martial arts movie seemed niche. After her, it became inevitable. Today, we have Scarlett Johansson as Black Widow, Charlize Theron in Atomic Blonde, and Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman. But all of those performances exist in the shadow of Michelle Yeoh blazing the trail. She gave Hollywood the blueprint for female action heroes who were not only strong but also complex, emotional, and real. Think about the cultural shift here. In America during the 1980s, kids were running around playgrounds pretending to be Rambo, swinging imaginary M16 rifles. By the 2000s, thanks to Michelle Yeoh and her contemporaries, girls and boys alike were pretending to sword fight like in Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. The idea of a woman being the strongest fighter in the room wasn't weird anymore. It was cool. Another way she redefined the action hero archetype was through vulnerability. Most male action stars are portrayed as invincible machines. Michelle's characters, by contrast, often faced injury, doubt, and loss. But rather than weaken them, those struggles made them stronger. This resonated deeply with audiences because it reflected reality. In real life, strength isn't about never falling down. It's about getting back up. Michelle embodied that. There's also the fact that she didn't rely on gimmicks. No machine guns bigger than her body. No over-the-top explosions to distract from the performance. Just her physical skill, and her screen presence. That authenticity is why so many of her fight scenes remain iconic decades later. To put it into an American analogy, Michelle Yeoh was to action cinema what Serena Williams was to tennis. She didn't just play the game well, she changed the game. She forced the industry to rethink what was possible and who could dominate. And in doing so, she didn't just carve out a place for herself, she opened doors for every woman who came after. Yeoh 6. She almost quit acting forever. It's hard to imagine a world without Michelle Yeoh lighting up the screen, but here's a fact that will blow your mind. At one point, she nearly walked away from acting forever, and not because she wasn't successful. By the mid-1990s, she was already one of Hong Kong's biggest action stars. She had starred in hits like Yes, Madame and Police Story 3, Super Cop. She was admired for her courage, her athleticism, and her undeniable charisma. But behind the scenes, Michelle was burned out and questioning her future. The non-stop physical toll of doing her own stunts left her body battered. Years of jumps, falls, and bone-jarring impacts had piled up. Combine that with the pressure of constantly proving herself in a male-dominated industry, and you get an exhausting grind that few people could endure. In 1988, after marrying wealthy businessman Dixon Poon, Michelle decided to retire from acting. She walked away at the height of her career, shocking fans and colleagues alike. For several years, she lived a quieter life out of the spotlight. Many assumed she was done for good. And let's be real. In Hong Kong cinema, careers are notoriously short-lived, especially for women. Once you step away, someone else fills the vacuum quickly. By the early 1990s, new stars like Anita Mui and Maggie Cheung had emerged. It seemed like Michelle Yeoh had closed the book on her career, but then fate intervened. Her marriage ended, and Michelle found herself at a crossroads. She could fade into obscurity, or she could take the biggest gamble of her life, a comeback, and she chose the latter. In 1992, she returned to acting with Police Story 3, Super Cop, starring opposite Jackie Chan. Audiences couldn't believe it. She was back, and she was better than ever. That comeback film wasn't just a hit, it redefined her career. It launched her into global recognition and eventually led her to Hollywood. Without that comeback, there would be no Bond film, no Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, no Oscar win decades later. The entire trajectory of her life hinged on that decision to return after walking away. Think about that in an American context. It's like Michael Jordan retiring from basketball in his prime to play baseball, then deciding to come back and lead the Chicago Bulls to 3 more championships. Michelle Yeoh's comeback was her Jordan moment. It proved that even after stepping away, even after the world moved on, true greatness finds its way back. What makes this fact so inspiring is that it shows Michelle Yeoh isn't just fearless in front of the camera. She is fearless in her life choices. She was willing to risk everything, walk away, and then fight her way back into an industry that doesn't exactly forgive absences. Her story reminds us that sometimes the most important battles are the ones you fight off-screen. Yeoh 5. She brought Asian cinema to global respectability. Before Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, many American audiences saw martial arts films as entertaining but somewhat niche. Sure, Bruce Lee had opened the door in the 1970s and Jackie Chan had made waves in the 1980s and 1990s. But there was still a sense in Hollywood that martial arts movies were genre films rather than high art. Michelle Yeoh helped obliterate that stereotype. When Ang Lee cast her in Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, 2000, Michelle was already well known in Asia, but this film changed everything. It wasn't just another kung fu flick. It was a sweeping epic that combined martial arts with romance, tragedy, and breathtaking cinematography. Michelle's performance as Yushu Lian was the beating heart of the movie. She wasn't a caricature, she was a fully realized character filled with longing, loyalty, and quiet suffering. She balanced her warrior's strength with a softness that captivated audiences. The film became a global phenomenon. It grossed over $200 million worldwide, won 4 Academy Awards, and was nominated for Best Picture, an unheard-of achievement for a foreign-language martial arts movie. And at the center of it all was Michelle Yeoh, proving to the world that Asian cinema could be just as emotionally rich and artistically profound as anything Hollywood produced. For many Americans, this was their first real introduction to Michelle Yeoh, and she left an unforgettable impression. I remember when the movie came out, suddenly, people who had never watched a kung fu film in their lives were quoting it, imitating the sword fights, and renting the DVD to watch over and over again. Universities started including the film in film studies courses. Critics compared it to Shakespearean tragedy. It wasn't just entertainment, it was culture. Michelle Yeoh's role in that success cannot be overstated. She wasn't just performing fight choreography, she was carrying the emotional weight of the film. Without her nuanced performance, the movie might have been dismissed as just another martial arts spectacle. Instead, it became a milestone that elevated the entire genre. And here's the ripple effect. After Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, Hollywood began to take Asian cinema more seriously. Directors like Zhang Yimou, Hero, House of Flying Daggers, found international audiences. Actors like Chow Yun-fat, Zi Jiang, and eventually Donnie Yen became global stars. The door Michelle helped open led to opportunities for an entire generation of Asian performers. To put it in American terms, think about what Black Panther did for Black representation in superhero films. It wasn't the first, but it was the one that broke through and changed the industry. That's what Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon did for Asian cinema, and Michelle Yeoh was its cornerstone. Even today, when people talk about the globalization of cinema, about how Korean dramas, Japanese anime, or Indian films are now mainstream in America, it's worth remembering that Michelle Yeoh was part of the wave that made that possible. She didn't just act in a hit movie, she shifted the cultural perception of an entire art form. 4. She won an Academy Award at an age when Hollywood usually shuts women out. Hollywood has a problem with age, especially for women. We all know the stereotype. Leading men can be 60 years old and still play action heroes or romantic leads, but actresses often get pushed into mom or grandma roles once they hit 40. It's one of the industry's most glaring double standards. But Michelle Yeoh shattered that ceiling in spectacular fashion. In 2023, at 60 years old, she won the Academy Award for Best Actress for her performance in Everything Everywhere All at Once. And this wasn't just another Oscar moment. It was history. Michelle became the first Asian woman ever to win Best Actress, and only the second woman of color to achieve that honor in the 95-year history of the Academy Awards. Let that sink in. Decades of cinema, thousands of films, but it wasn't until Michelle Yeoh that an Asian woman was finally recognized at the very top. Her acceptance speech was just as powerful as the win itself. She looked directly into the camera and said, "For all the little boys and girls who look like me watching tonight, this is a beacon of hope and possibilities." That line became an instant headline because it wasn't just about her. It was about representation, about telling generations of kids who rarely see themselves on screen that they belong. And here, the kicker. Michelle Oscar wasn't for a glamorous costume drama or a safe, predictable role. It was for a wild, multiverse-spanning, genre-bending film where she played Evelyn Wang, a middle-aged Chinese-American laundromat owner struggling with taxes, family, and cosmic chaos. It was messy, absurd, funny, heartbreaking, and action-packed, all rolled into one. The role demanded every ounce of her range: martial arts, comedy, drama, even hot dog fingers. Only Michelle Yeoh could pull it off. Think about this in an American context. It's like if the NFL, notorious for only drafting young players, suddenly gave the MVP to a 60-year-old quarterback who not only held their own, but outperformed everyone else. That's what Michelle Yeoh did. She proved that age is not a limitation, it's a superpower. The Oscar wasn't just a personal triumph, it was a cultural earthquake. Asian American communities erupted in celebration. Social media lit up with pride, memes, and tributes. Newspapers called it a watershed moment. And for Hollywood, it was a wake-up call. The industry could no longer pretend that diversity was optional, or that actresses lose value after a certain age. Michelle's victory forced the conversation to change. But let's also not forget the emotional weight behind that golden statue. Michelle Yeoh had been in the industry for nearly 40 years. She had risked her life on stunts, broken bones, turned down stereotypes, and almost quit entirely. To finally stand on the Dolby Theatre stage holding that Oscar wasn't just about one film. It was about a lifetime of perseverance. Number 3. She's more than just an actress. She's a global humanitarian. Here's a fact many casual fans don't know. Michelle Yeoh isn't only conquering the silver screen. She's using her influence to make the world a better place. She has long been an advocate for causes ranging from road safety to wildlife conservation to empowering women. Let's start with road safety. In the mid-2000s, Michelle became a global ambassador for the Make Roads Safe campaign, an initiative aimed at reducing traffic accidents worldwide. Why road safety? Because in many developing countries, road traffic accidents are one of the leading causes of death, particularly among young people. Michelle traveled extensively, meeting with policymakers, speaking at the United Nations, and appearing in awareness campaigns to shine a light on this overlooked crisis. For millions of families, losing someone in a preventable accident is devastating, and Michelle used her platform to amplify those voices. She also serves as a United Nations Development Program Goodwill Ambassador. In this role, she focuses on sustainable development, climate change, and protecting wildlife. She's particularly passionate about saving endangered species like tigers and elephants, animals that face constant threats from poaching and habitat loss. Growing up in Malaysia, Michelle had first-hand experience with the rich biodiversity of Southeast Asia. So this isn't just a talking point for her, it's personal, and it doesn't stop there. Michelle Yeoh is a vocal supporter of women's empowerment, especially in industries where women are underrepresented. She often speaks about her own struggles breaking into action cinema and how important it is for young women to see strong female role models on screen. Her advocacy work goes beyond Hollywood glitz. It's about systemic change. Think about it this way. A lot of celebrities endorse charities, but not all of them get their hands dirty. Michelle does. She's been on the ground, visiting communities, giving speeches at international summits, and even making documentaries about the causes she supports. One example is her documentary, Among the Great Apes with Michelle Yeoh, 2009, where she spent time at a rehabilitation center for orangutans in Malaysia, highlighting the urgent need for conservation. In American terms, Michelle Yeoh's humanitarian side is like what LeBron James does with his school in Ohio. He's not just playing basketball, he's building a legacy off the court. Similarly, Michelle Yeoh isn't just making movies. She's leaving a footprint in global humanitarian efforts. And here's why this matters in the big picture. Representation is powerful, but responsibility makes it meaningful. Michelle Yeoh understands that her fame gives her a megaphone, and she chooses to use that megaphone not just for herself, but for the voiceless. Whether it's children endangered by unsafe roads or animals on the brink of extinction, she brings attention where it's desperately needed. Number 2. She's a cultural chameleon, from Asia to Hollywood to the multiverse. One of the most extraordinary things about Michelle Yeoh is her ability to transcend cultures and genres with ease. Think about it. How many actors can dominate in Hong Kong martial arts cinema, then pivot to James Bond, then win an Oscar in a wild, multiverse-bending indie film? That range is mind-boggling. In Asia, she was revered as the action queen, headlining hits that made her a household name across Hong Kong, Malaysia, and mainland China. In the West, she proved she could stand shoulder to shoulder with Pierce Brosnan's James Bond, Chow Yun-fat in Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and even Vin Diesel in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Then she turned around and starred in Crazy Rich Asians, 2018, where she wasn't flipping through the air or wielding a sword. She was Eleanor Young, a matriarch who could silence a room with just a stare. That role reminded audiences that Michelle Yeoh isn't just about action. She's a dramatic powerhouse capable of delivering tension, nuance, and quiet authority without a single punch thrown. Her versatility reached new heights with Everything Everywhere All at Once, 2022. Playing Evelyn Wang meant switching between dozens of versions of the same character across parallel universes. A kung fu master, a glamorous movie star, a struggling laundromat owner, even a woman with hot dog fingers. Each version felt authentic, distinct, and emotionally resonant. That's the mark of an actor in complete control of her craft. In American terms, think about Robert De Niro. He can be a mobster in Goodfellas, a father figure in Meet the Parents, and a dramatic powerhouse in The Irishman. That's the kind of chameleon-like range Michelle Yeoh has, but across cultures and languages, which makes it even more impressive. And here is the kicker. She doesn't just fit in when moving between industries. She elevates them. In Hollywood, she showed that Asian actors could lead global blockbusters. In Asia, she brought Western visibility and prestige. She acts as a cultural bridge, someone who embodies the idea that cinema is truly global. For immigrant families in America, Michelle's career resonates deeply. Parents who grew up watching her in Hong Kong films can now watch her win Oscars in Hollywood, alongside their children. She connects generations, cultures, and continents in a way few stars can. That's why calling her a cultural chameleon almost feels too small. She's a cultural phenomenon. Number 1. She's building a legacy that will outlive her. When all is said and done, the greatest fact about Michelle Yeoh is not just what she's accomplished, but what she represents. She's more than an actress, more than a stunt woman, more than a global celebrity. She's a symbol of perseverance, reinvention, and representation. Think about her legacy. She broke barriers for women in action films when no one believed a female lead could carry a martial arts blockbuster. She brought dignity to Asian characters in Hollywood at a time when stereotypes were the norm. She proved that age is not a curse, winning her first Oscar at 60, and she uses her fame to fight for global causes, from endangered species to gender equality. Her influence can already be seen in the new generation of actors. Gemma Chan, Awkwafina, Simu Liu, and others have openly credited pioneers like Michelle Yeoh for opening the doors that allow them to thrive today. Every time you see an Asian superhero in a Marvel movie, every time you see an Asian-led rom-com or drama succeed in Hollywood, there's a line that traces back to Michelle Yeoh's trailblazing career. Even in her personal life, she sets an example. She's known for her humility, kindness, and discipline. Colleagues describe her as someone who works harder than anyone on set but never loses her grace. In an industry filled with egos, Michelle Yeoh's reputation is one of respect. To put it into perspective, think about someone like Muhammad Ali. Yes, he was the greatest boxer of all time, but his true legacy wasn't E.T., just in the ring. It was in what he stood for outside of it. That's Michelle Yeoh in cinema. Her movies will be remembered, but her legacy as a pioneer, as a beacon for representation, will outlive even her most iconic roles. And let's not forget, her story isn't finished. Even after winning the Oscar, she's still pushing boundaries, signing on for new projects, exploring new genres, and continuing to redefine what an actor can be. Michelle Yeoh is not done making history. From ballerina dreams cut short by injury, to performing her own death-defying stunts, to redefining action heroes, to breaking into Hollywood without perfect English, to nearly quitting and then returning stronger than ever, to elevating Asian cinema to global respect, to winning an Oscar at 60, to her humanitarian work, to her cultural versatility, and finally to building a legacy that will outlive her, Michelle Yeoh. As life reads like a movie script more thrilling than any blockbuster. She's not just a star on screen. She's a force of nature, a role model, and a living reminder that no obstacle, whether it's injury, language, stereotypes, or age, can stop you if you have the discipline, resilience, and courage to keep going. And that is why Michelle Yeoh isn't just one of the greatest actresses of our time. She is one of the greatest of all time, period. If you enjoyed this countdown, don't forget to hit that like button and share this video with your friends who love cinema and inspiring life stories. Subscribe to our channel so you never miss another deep dive into the fascinating lives of global icons. And let us know in the comments, what's your favorite Michelle Yeoh moment? Was it her sword fights in Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, her Bond role, or her Oscar-winning turn in Everything Everywhere All at Once? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Thanks for watching, and remember, greatness isn't about where you start, it's about how far you're willing to go. Michelle Yeoh went all the way, and she's still climbing.